Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Rav Shmuel here with you. Rabbi Shmuel Ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen Epstein. Haven't really used the term Rashbi in a while. Just kind of got a little old, and I don't know, things just kind of change. Vernacular changes, key phrases change, and just kind of happens. So once again, I'm dressed a little shabby today. I've got my IDF shirt on. Um, and one of the reasons I do that, folks, is I'm a supporter of Israel, big time. Um, as far as I'm concerned, the word Zionist really does not exist. If you're Jewish, you believe in Israel. After all, Passover next year in Jerusalem, Shanat Haba Yerushalayim, Yom Kippur next year in Jerusalem. So we do that. So this is my way of saying support. Now, I'm a humanist. I want to see people get along. I want to see people thrive. I want to see people all over the world be able to live in peace and freedom and have their liberty. I don't want to see people gunned down by rogue governments and their excuses, well, we're the government, we're making the laws, leave us alone. One of the things that Judaism teaches us is that there is divine justice. And let's say you don't believe in God. Let's say you're an atheist. Well, there are still principles that we need to live by in order to have an orderly society, right? So you don't steal, you don't take something that doesn't belong to you because that prevents trust. There's no trust. There's no safety. People don't want to get along with people because they never know who's going to rip them off. Murder, especially that. People want to feel safe. They want to feel that they live in a society where they could go about their business without being harassed, without being bullied, and they want to be able to live their life according to their own wishes, where nobody's interfering with them just because. So there it is. So many of you two have seen me go like this a few times, okay? What is this? This is the Hebrew letter ayin. It is the second silent letter. And as a lot of you probably know, each letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value. Not that we do math, not that we use the Hebrew letters for math, but it's used for identification. So Aleph, the first letter, is 1. Beit, the second letter, is 2, and so on. One of the more popular understandings is the word chai, life. And the numerical value of chai is 18. So you've got the yud, which is 10, and the chet, which is 8. So together, chai spells 18. And a lot of people use that number in terms of giving, okay? So I'm going to make a donation to a charity or, to my synagogue, hint, hint. And I'm going to contribute 5 chai, 5 times 18, which is 90. I'm going to contribute $90. And that's part of what they do. Jews are not typically superstitious. We don't believe in superstition. We're not superstitious because we don't believe in luck. We believe in what God deems, right? And we just kind of go and work with that. So we don't believe in luck. So why the ayin? Why the 70? I'm 70 years old. And I'm really proud of the fact that I've taken care of myself, that I work out, that I meditate. We eat right. My wife got us on a purely, almost exclusively organic diet a few years ago, and we felt better. And we don't eat a lot of junk food. I've lost much of my craving for sugar. Excuse me. And so I'm very proud to look like this and, be able to function like this at the age of 70. So this is when I flash this, sometimes if you look it up, it's kind of looks like an onion. Okay, enough of that. Chukat Balak. So this week we get a double portion, and that kind of brings us in line with the Israel readings. So you might recall that we were one reading behind Israel because Shavuot, we have 2 days of Shavuot out here in the diaspora. We have the first day and the second day this year coincided with Shabbat. So Shavuot being one of the Shalosh Reglaim, one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, we had a special reading that in Israel they didn't. They just continued with the normal flow, the regular flow, I should say, of the Torah portions. So they were one ahead of us. So for us to make up, we at this point this week have a double portion. Now, some people may say, well, why don't we just do it the following week? There are specific designated matchups or dual readings that they do, excuse me, depending on the year. One such doubling up is Tazria Metzora, and that's all about blemishes on the skin, blemishes on the house. They put them together. Another one is Acharimot and Kedoshim after the death of Nadab and Avihu, and that talks about the Yom Kippur offering, and then that goes into a whole slew of commandments in the Parsha Kedoshim, which is one of the standard matchups. This is another doubling up, Chukat and Balak. Chukat is about decree. It starts with the red heifer, and then it goes into Balak, who was a Midianite king, a Moabite king, who sent for Balaam, a wizard that he knew from Mesopotamia, to come and curse the Israelites because he figured, well, they have a pretty strong army, a pretty tough brood. So, I'm just going to match up wizard by wizard, prophet per prophet. And as Balaam is coming to meet Balak, God talks to him. And you're thinking, wait a minute, God is talking to somebody who's not Jewish? Yes. Jews are, we're the chosen people because we chose God, but it doesn't mean everybody else is just, whatever, trash. What it means basically is that we've accepted upon ourselves, we've accepted the yoke of the 10 Commandments and the mitzvot. By the way, we all know there are 613 commandments. So some people say, well, the New York Knicks secured their championship on June 13th, 613. Okay, I'll throw that out. You do with it what you want. So, but according to the sages, every people has their own prophet. God did that to basically level the playing. Said, you're right, it would not be fair just for this one people to have a prophet, so everybody has a prophet. So let's say you're Christian and you come to me and say, well, what do you think of Jesus? Do you think he's the Messiah? Well, from our point of view, Mashiach means anointed one. Don't take this the wrong way, but when I was ordained a rabbi, they anointed me with the olive oil and the whole thing, and that's really all it means in Judaism. So how do we feel about Jesus? Well, he's Christianity's prophet, the same way Muhammad would be Islam's prophet. Okay, no problem with that. So Balaam was Mesopotamia's prophet, or whatever people he represented. So that is later on in our portion. Let's talk about our triennial portion, which is Chukat, which is the red heifer. Heifer is a young cow, and red, which means all the hair. That's my beautiful wife. And I have a shirt that says, I work out because my wife is hot. I'll wear that one time when I do my Devar Torah. But anyway, so the cow has to have no more than 2 hairs that are not red. It has to be pure red. Why? It's a decree, hence the word chukat, which is the Hebrew word for decree. There's no logical reason why. It's like kashrut. Why are some foods pure and some foods aren't? Well, we can speculate. I know people have said, well, there's health reasons, but the bottom line is because that's what God says. God says, this is what you do, so we do it. And what do? Well, somebody who has performed the mitzvah, the good deed, the commandment of attending to someone's remains after they die, it's a mitzvah. And it's a beautiful mitzvah because it can never be repaid. Dead person's not going to come back to life and say, well, thanks for taking care of my dead body. Now I'll do, not going to happen, right? So it's one of those things which you do, and it's a pure good deed. However, in the process of attending to somebody who has on their last rites, as they're called, you get contaminated, which means you got to go outside the camp for 7 days. And what do we do to purify? Well, we take a red heifer. Again, all the hairs are red. You can have 2 that aren't, but more than that, and it's disqualified. It's an olah. It's a burnt offering. They take the ashes, they mix it with water. The person goes outside the camp on the 3rd day. There's my ayin. They are sprinkled with that. And on the 7th day, they're sprinkled again, and then they can come back. The problem, and again, it's just something we do. Is there a significance to the color red? Some people say there are. I mean, it has to do with blood. It has to do with sin, and it's a way of purging the contamination of the sin. Now, when I say contamination and purify, it's not negative. I mentioned that to someone once, and they got upset because their husband had just died. It's not a negative connotation. It's just that, if you're cleaning the house, you get dirty, and then what do? You take a shower to clean up. It's not that you've done something bad. It's just that in the process of cleaning, you yourself get dirty and sweaty, and now it's time for you to clean up. That's all. So they say that there's a significance, but really there kind of isn't. It just is. And we do it. And this is where the second Passover came in, because a lot of people had done that. They weren't able to partake in the Paschal offering because they were contaminated. Okay. Anyway, there's a sin and there's a remedy. Not a sin, a contamination and a remedy. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for listening, and happy new month. That was my phone falling.